Hey, I'm Holly and welcome to the news Beyond the Markets, the special show that gives you all the news that matters for the day. First up on the show are updates on the sudden spread of COVID in Australia. Let me take you through the new lockdown and latest updates on the virus situation in our states. Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, reported 18 locally acquired cases of COVID-19 on Monday. Meanwhile, the state capital, Sydney, began the second day of a 2-week lockdown to contain an outbreak of the highly infectious Delta virus variant. Of the 18 reported cases, 15 are linked to the existing cluster, while 2 are close contacts of a previously reported unlinked case. Owing to the recent spread of the Delta variant, Australia's Queensland states reintroduced mandatory masks and limited home gatherings rule on Monday. The move is aimed at adding to the increasing social distancing measures around the country as it battles an outbreak of the coronavirus. Officials grapple to contain outbreaks of the highly contagious Delta variant, and Sydney was plunged into lockdown over the weekend, along with the northern city of Darwin. More than 10 million Australians, or 2/5 of the population, are now under some form of lockdown or COVID-related restriction. In the wake of the recent spread of the virus, Australia's National Security Committee is expected to hold an emergency meeting later on Monday. Sydney began a 2-week lockdown on Sunday to contain the outbreak. And meanwhile, Western Australia reintroduced mandatory masks in indoor locations and limited gatherings to homes in outdoor areas. And for Perth, the state capital, 3 days starting from Sunday. This was announced after detecting a case linked to the Sydney cluster. While there are new reported cases of the virus spread in the country, Australia has so far fared much better than many other developed countries in tackling with the spread of the virus. The country has reported just over 30,450 coronavirus cases and 910 deaths. Lockdowns, tough social distancing rules, and swift contact tracing have helped the country successfully suppress the prior outbreaks. But the fast-moving Delta variant, however, has alarmed health authorities. Australia has reported one of the highest numbers for locally acquired coronavirus cases this year. This resulted in triggering lockdowns in the cities of Sydney and Darwin, forcing tighter restrictions in 4 states. Sydney began a 2-week lockdown on Sunday as the Bondi neighbourhood cluster of the highly infectious Delta variant rose to 110, while the outbreak in the northern city of Darwin prompted a hard 2-day stay-at-home order. There were 38 cases of different COVID-19 variants reported by last Sunday. On the 38 cases, 30 of them were reported in Sydney, 4 in the Northern Territory, 3 in Queensland, and 1 in Western Australia. It was the first time in months that so many different regions in the country had reported new infections on the same day. Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt has warned Australians that there will be more cases to come. The recent spread has made Queensland, WA, the ACT, and South Australia implement tighter social distancing rules. Some have closed borders to arrivals from the affected regions, while others are moving to obligatory mask wearing indoors. The Northern Territory reported 4 locally acquired infections unrelated to Sydney, which started with a worker at the gold mine owned by Newmont Corp, which is now in lockdown. Government figures suggest that there have been only about 1.4 million double doses of vaccinations administered so far in a country of 25 million people. The impact of the new lockdown was seen on these sports events too. Australia's series opening rugby test against France next month is now moved to Brisbane as Sydney has entered lockdown. And times are really concerning from the Kalkine TV as we urge our viewers to stay safe and take good care of your health. On that note, let's take a small break, but stay tuned as I'll be back in just a moment to share the latest news.
This is Andy Lou broadcasting from Kalkine Media Studio in Australia, and I'll be hosting the new Kalkine Wellness Show. The half-hour show will cover topics from how wellness as a concept has become even more significant during COVID, to how becoming vegan may improve your health, and much more. We are excited to showcase our live streaming show to our audience of millions overseas and in Australia. Tune in to Kalkine TV and join me.
Welcome back, I'm Holly and you're watching the news beyond the markets. We'll now take an update on the spread of the coronavirus and rules imposed from across the Tasman Sea. New Zealand will extend the COVID-19 alert level in the capital of Wellington for 2 more days. Authorities said that there is still a risk from an Australian tourist who tested positive for the coronavirus after visiting the city last weekend. Wellington, which moved to alert level 2 on Wednesday, will now remain at that level until Tuesday. COVID-19 response Minister Chris Hipkins said in a news briefing that more testing and more results are required in order to feel confident in making a decision to lower the alert levels. The measure means social distancing rules will be in place across the city, but offices, schools and businesses may remain open. New Zealand halted quarantine-free travel from Australia on Saturday for 3 days, saying there were too many cases and outbreaks. Now for a concerning piece of news coming in, Australia has lowered its projections for population growth as well as economic growth over the next 40 years due to the impact of the pandemic. Canberra closed its international borders in March to all but citizens and permanent residents in an attempt to prevent the spread of the virus. The government says it will only reopen to migrants when it believes it is safe to do so. Australia now expects its population to total 38.8 million by 2061. With growth showing its population growing older, Canberra said it now expects its economy to grow at a 2.6% a year over the next 40 years, compared with its previous forecast of 3% per year. Well, on that note, it is time for another small break, but stay with us and I'll be back in just a moment.
Crypto talk by Kalkine. The crypto market has been red hot given the Bitcoin rally since the past year. And now the most famous cryptocurrency has got competitors, Dogecoin and Ethereum. If the crypto market excites you, tune in with me, Sage, to know the latest developments about the existing digital currencies and the new ones that are joining the race. I'll help you understand the opportunities and the risks the crypto market has in store for you. For all the digital currency related developments, continue watching Crypto Talk by Kalkine.
Welcome back, I'm Holly and you're watching the news beyond the markets. Let's now have a look at the news that matters from the political front. Australia has urged Samoa's political parties to work together to form a government. This happened after a top court in the Pacific nation dealt with a blow to a prime minister who has refused to accept an election defeat by saying there was no legal reason to delay convening parliament. The island's politics descended into chaos after Samoa's China-friendly Prime Minister, Chulepela Salili Malego, refused to give away after losing a parliamentary election in April that would have ended his 22 years in power. The election was won by Flame Naomi Matafa, whose Fast Party scored a 1-seat majority. But Samoa's ceremonial head of state backed Talipa by blocking the parliament from swearing in the newly elected lawmakers and frustrating plans to confirm a new government. The move was taken despite a number of judicial rulings supporting Fiame's claim of the premiership. The Court of Appeal clarified that the convening of Parliament is mandatory under the country's constitution, overriding the objections of Tulapila and his party. And moving on from politics to the commodities, booming iron ore prices are expected to account for nearly half of Australia's record export earnings from the resources this financial year. According to a government report, the country anticipates further gains ahead. Earnings from Australian resource exports are estimated to come in at a record $310 billion in the 2020 to 2021 financial year ending June. The rise is seen owing to a ramp up in the industrial activity following COVID restrictions. The government report said that Australia expects iron ore prices to average $137 this financial year from a March forecast of $128 and $129 next financial year. Meanwhile, LNG export earnings are expected to jump 53% in the year to June 2022. This will be on the back of higher oil prices and a 5% rise in export volumes, as problems in the Gorgon LNG and Prelude floating LNG are resolved. The government has also revised up expectations for thermal coal prices this year from 74 to 60 and to 82 next year. Copper price expectations stand at 7,882 from a March forecast of 7,649. And before I take your leave, here are some good news for Australians who are getting vaccinated. As a move towards encouraging Aussies to get the vaccine, foreign holidays, travel vouchers and luxury accommodations are the incentives being offered. Authorities and health experts believe that more doses need to be administered to help combat the COVID-19 chaos. In Australia, Qantas is offering free flights from July for eligible people who have been vaccinated. And Virgin Australia is also rolling out the rewards with their VAX and WIN program. Getting vaccinated against COVID is the most important medical intervention in Australia. So let's all get the jab, not just for the rewards, but to stop the spread as well. And that is all for now. Keep watching Kalkine TV as we bring you the latest news and trending market updates live from Sydney.